Morning traders. Well, let's start off like we usually do with the dollar DXY index here, and let's take a look. Yeah, well, the dollar's run into a little bit of resistance up against those levels that we saw back on the 14th of July. And the RSI is obviously in overbought territory. Tiny bit of divergence there. Price is sort of level here, but the RSI has made a higher high. Candle, don't like that long wick to the upside, means sellers are coming in. Could we see a bit of a reversal here, pullback into Jackson Hole? Levels I'd be watching. There's a bit of stickiness there around 107 for a pullback. That's why I'd be looking. And if we go above there, the previous high, I'd be looking at 110. Let's move on to the S&P 500, which saw a big sell-off yesterday. We can see came into some stiff resistance there at the 200-day simple moving average, as well as the downtrend line. And we saw some big bearish red candles coming there. The RSI moved out of overbought territory. We're still above 51.80, and we're seeing a bit of potentially a little reversal candle here. 21-day simple moving average, as well as the 50% Fibonacci level, providing some support. We're also not far off from that round number at 4.1, where there's a little bit of support here. So we'll have to see what happens throughout the day, the session. Euro US dollar, it's still below parity. We saw quite a big fall, but those slightly better than expected PMI numbers out from Germany's helped it have a little bounce, but we have taken out the 14th of July low here at 0.995, and we hover in the low 0.99s. On the upside, one's clearly a round number magnet for the bulls to try and target above there. We've got some resistance at around 101.07, and then below there 0.98, 0.99 would be the levels I'd be monitoring. Let's move on to the German 40, the DAX. We're seeing a bit of support here on this 50-day simple moving average. Again, downtrend line resistance. We're at this sort of key threshold here around this 13.2 level, 13.2K level. Below there, if the bears can continue to push it lower, 12.5 is the level I'll be looking at. Obviously, I think the RSI, it's not in oversold territory yet. It could push low. There's a bit more room to run. While it remains below the 50 mark, short the bias sort of strategy remains intact. Let's take a look at cable, also having a tiny little bounce this morning. We can see, it took out again the 14th July low at around 117.6. We got down to around 117.4, so just slightly below it. And I think on the upside for the bulls, again, 120 will be key. But before then, we've got a bit of support at 119.4, 119.5. And on the downside, I think a move to 116, 115 would be pivotal. And as we can see, the RSI is just slightly above oversold. So maybe we need to see a slight push high and then another leg lower. Let's look at Euro GBP. Euro GBP trapped between this 50-day and 200-day simple moving average, between 0.85 and 0.845. The RSI just below 50. So I wouldn't really be able to discern anything from that in terms of a long or short bias. But the levels to watch below there, if it breaks out of this sort of tight little range between the moving averages, would be 0.84 and 0.855. Dollar yen, seeing a tiny bit of a reversal here, rolling over. The RSI is still above 50 though. We saw a nice break above that 50-day simple moving average. And levels in terms of what I'm watching, again, close to that 140 on the upside, and then on the downside, I'll be looking around 135.5 where that 50-day simple moving averages, as well as the 21-day exponential moving average. Let's look at the Aussie dollar. It's a high-octane currency. We know it's volatile. We can see the RSI below 50, trying to put in some support here around the 50-day simple moving average. It's dropped below that sort of yellow support zone I drew in between. What are those levels there? It's 0.69 and 0.699, 0.692. Levels-wise, in terms of, there's a bit of support there at 0.68, and then on the downside there, we've got 0.67, those lows. And then on the upside, I'd be looking to the top of that range there at around 0.699 or 0.7. Let's take a look at gold. Gold's obviously slid through that 1750 support. It's trying to now put in a bit of a bounce here, a bit of an oversold bounce, but we still have some room to run. Again, price came into that key 62 resistance on the RSI and sold back down as at 1,800. I think for the bulls, they've got to get back into that above that 1750. On the downside, 17 are the lows to watch. Lastly, spot crude. Let's have a look. So it's coming back into this trend line here. Can it breach above there? Can it get back above this sort of bottom of the range support here at $100? Interesting. The 200-day simple moving average there, so it's quite a lot of resistance. The RSI is still below that 50 level. So short bias potentially intact. We'll have to see what happens on the fundamental news flow side. But on the technicals, 95, 93 here around the lows, 94. That would be the levels I'm watching on the downside. And then above there, I'll be looking at around 105 if we can break back above there. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Technical Tuesdays. I hope you've enjoyed it. And we're working with a new microphone, so I also hope the audio quality is better.